Nurture and support. Nurture and support. This is a podcast theme song. And it's really short.
Nurture and support begins in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Nurture and Support. This is the big episode 101 after that whole episode 100 recommendation madness. I am Mel at Karmic9 on Twitter, and surprisingly enough, Kelly has returned.
And welcome to round 47 of Recommendation Madness. Oh, goodness. I don't know what we're going to do when we're not picking recommendations anymore. But hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter. And glad to be back for 101.
Yep, it's been quite a haul, everyone. I hope you enjoyed Recommendation Madness. That was pretty cool. Surprise winner there for all of us at the end.
Big surprise. As I looked at it, several of the ones that hung out towards the end, I thought had a good shot to be around at the end. And then there were several that made it towards the end that I had, including our winner, which is a lovely recommendation, but it shocked the world. Yes. And y'all will notice Kelly won, but he's not gloating. Laura Dale won. Kelly didn't win.
Yes. It was a win-win for everyone. So I've got, after all of that recommendation madness, I have for you a pretty short recommendation this week. This is a pretty new app. It is book related, but it works on iOS and Android, and there's a website, but it's mainly meant to be used as an app on a tablet or a phone. It is called Cereal Box. And no, that's not like a box of cornflakes. It's actually cereal, like serial killer.
What an interesting choice you made there to clarify, Mel.
Well, when I see the word cereal, S-E-R-I-A-L, I'm sorry, that's where my mind immediately jumps to. However, what this app is really referring to is a resurgence in serial storytelling. This, like I mentioned, is a book-related app. So what they're doing, they're starting out pretty small to get going. Right now, they have 2 active serialized novels going on at the moment. There's a third that will start in January. So I'm not really going to talk about the stories so much right now. I just really want to talk about the app. This is it's pretty cool. I like this idea. All of you know I'm a big reader. Amazon, surprisingly enough, is my ebook dealer of choice. I usually use the Kindle app, and Amazon has been experimenting for a couple of years now with the same format of serialized novels, bringing them back. Back in the old days, there would be magazines that would have a portion of a novel in them every month, and it would be serialized throughout. So this app, Cereal Box, releases a new episode every week. Now, what you do is you have to pay per episode, or if you get in at the beginning of a season, you can subscribe to the whole book series, and you'll end up getting the whole thing for about $1.59 an episode. One of the cool things going on here is that they have not only the text version of the story, but there's also the audio version of the story if you're a little averse to reading. If you want the text version of the story and you want to buy it per episode, it works out to about $1.99 for just the text version, or if you only want the audio version, it's $1.99, or you can buy both of them for a combined price of $2.99. But if you get in early enough to subscribe, you actually will get the text and the audio together for $1.59. The 2 series that they have up right now, one is called Book Burners, and the second one is Tremontaine. Book Burners is going to have 16 episodes this season. Tremontaine's going to have 13. The new series starting in January, I believe, is also going to have 13. So each one of the episodes of these individual stories are written by different authors. They have like a kind of like a writer's room type thing going on where they have a group of writers who are all writing within the same story, but each one takes over doing a different chapter of the story. And if you're a reader, you would probably recognize some of the people involved. Max Gladstone created the story Book Burners. You're going to recognize a bunch of these people's names. You've got Max Gladstone, Margaret Dunlap, Mur Lafferty, Brian Francis Slattery are the ones mainly listed. Some of the other stories are the same sort of thing. They've got authors you're going to recognize their names. These are not people you haven't heard of or don't have any individually published works out. These are pretty good quality. I'm not caught up current to Book Burners yet. Still in the first few episodes, but that's a story that I really like. But I want to contrast this app with what, say, Amazon is doing with serialized novels. When you get a serial from Amazon, I don't particularly like that experience because you're buying each individual episode and they're showing up in your Kindle as separate books. What's the problem with that? Well, if you're like me and you've got a whole bunch of books on there, you start to have trouble telling which episode is which episode, which one goes after the next, depending on how it's titled. So I've bought a few serials through Amazon's Kindle service, and I've had trouble keeping track of which one was the next section I was supposed to read if I wasn't caught up current, which I'll admit it, I'm hardly ever current on the episode. I end up having to kind of binge it to catch up. What Serial Box does is essentially has like an e-reader that you're all used to using. You can change the font. You can change the background from either a light background with black text, or you can change it to a black background with white text, which is easier for a lot of us to read within the app, or you can actually play the audio section from within the app. And you have all of the speed controls that if you're an audio book listener, you're used to having. But you get them all contained within the one book cover. So each chapter is right there and you can just switch to each one. So they're not scattered all over the place and you never know where you are and what the next one is that you're going to read, which I think is a pretty cool thing. I like this app because it brings more books to more people in a way that's not associated with, let's face it, now that Kelly has joined the Prime juggernaut, Amazon's got a big chunk of this market, and it's nice to see other people getting into this sort of thing to help spread it out a little bit. So if you are adverse to Amazon, here is a serialized novel, a couple of them going on right now, that are very good. I've enjoyed what I've read of all of them. And you can get the first episode free to see if you like the story and want to continue with it. So there's not a lot of risk going on there. It's nice to see new people getting into the game and spreading it around where you don't have to buy just from one market. I don't know if Nook has gotten into serialized novels yet. I know you're a Nook reader, Kelly. Have you noticed?
I have a Nook. It has not been turned on recently because I've been doing the old school Game of Thrones process.
That's right.
I'm finally on the last book. It's only a mere 1,100 pages long, so I
Right.
can hardly wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I'll have to. I haven't checked lately on the Nook, but I'll check it out.
I haven't looked lately either, so I don't know if they've gotten into serialized novels yet or not. Bringing back an old art form. It's really pretty cool. It breaks it down into small chunks that we can all handle reading, and it kind of, builds that anticipation for the next chapter. What Serial Box likes to say about it is they estimate each section, each episode each week would take someone about 40 minutes to read, a little bit longer to listen to. So they break it down into nice chunks. You can actually have all of their active stories going on at once if you want to. The only downside to any of this is I think you probably end up paying a little bit more for all of these episodes than you would for a bargain price ebook. but I think here you're getting quality. You're getting people that really know how to write a story and craft a story, and I think you can expect that it's a good story. I'm really enjoying Book Burners. Now I have seen, if you just completely don't want to use any of these, I have seen that Book Burners is available on Amazon if you want to buy it per edition, but I think really the best way to do it is through the Serial Box app, which I don't know about how you do it on Android because I'm an iOS person, but you can buy your editions through the app. So you can use your iTunes account to buy each episode if you're not subscribed. You can only subscribe on their website, but it's a very pretty painless process. But if you're not subscribed, you can buy per episode right directly from within the app, which is nice. Not all the jumping around that some of us Kindle users have to do to buy ebooks on our iPad. So, Serial Box, it's a new app. I think it came out in September. Serialized novels, I think they're going to grow from where they are right now. There are 2 active stories, one new one coming in January. So get in early and jump into these stories because they really look pretty cool. I would advise all of you to go to their website and check out the synopsis of the stories that they have planned. And you can read the first chapter for free and then decide if you want to jump in and do it. But I think it's pretty cool. I, of course, heard about this on Twitter, which is the knower of all things these days. So,
Indeed it is.
yep. So
So,
check out Serial Box.
so if you fall behind and you binge read a serialized novel, you're reading a book.
Defeating the person.
You're
Yes.
basically reading a book at that point.
Yes,
So,
you are.
okay.
Doesn't change the story. You are defeating the
The concept.
Yes. Yes, you are, but I'm a rebel that way. I will buy a serialized novel and then read it all at once because that's just how I roll.
You're crazy like that.
I know, man. I'm a rebel.
All righty. Very cool. That sounds fun. Yeah. It on Android, it as many things on Android, it varies, but there is some of that kind of
Mhm.
if you're connected, your Play Store credentials and
Yeah.
charge information can for some in-app purchases can go
Yeah.
that way. Other ones you got to bounce around.
Yeah, I don't think you can Kindle buy an Android, but not surprised. They sell books. They're not real fond of Amazon. So
Probably not so much.
no. So I would imagine the Serial Box app you can pay for in the Play Store as well. But anyway,
Very cool.
pretty cool.
Excellent. All right. So for for show 101, might as well kind of stick with what I know. It's not an Alice Cooper recommendation though. And I just like to point out, Mel mentioned I may have become a member of something that I have in previous shows railed against.
Mm-hmm.
But
Bashed.
I just want to assure everyone it will have no impact on this show.
Really?
So yeah, so my recommendation today comes from Amazon Prime Video, and but it's also available on YouTube in 16 different pieces because it's a bit lengthy. It's a documentary, it's a movie, and it's about our good friend Brian Eno. So Brian Eno was a recommendation of mine a little while ago. I recommended Ambient, I believe it's Ambient 4 on Land,
Yes.
his dark ambient album. And I had always fancied myself being fairly Brian Eno knowledgeable, and I shared some of the pieces when I made the recommendation of what I knew. What I came to kind of realize is that I probably was operating at a freshman in college level of Brian Enoosity in terms of knowledge. And so this documentary, which is called Brian Eno, 1971 to 1977, The Man Who Fell to Earth, clocking in at 2 hours and 42 minutes.
Wow.
Is upper level Brian Eno studies. So you get some in-depth knowledge on Brian Eno. And I kind of knew these pieces, and I mentioned several of them when I talked about On Land. But this is a 6-year period, basically from when he leaves Roxy Music to just before he starts the Ambient album series. So it's in 6 years, and the amount of stuff he does in this 6 years is just stunning. and it's just a very interesting development. So you just kind of learn a lot more about this guy's his evolution. He started out with Roxy Music. He declared himself, and I believe I mentioned this before, as a non-musician. Well, there's a lot of truth to that, because he was basically, if you think about it, initially with Roxy Music, he was working a mixing board and distorting and changing and layering and doing delays. And typically the guys doing that are at the back of the stadium or the auditorium or the concert hall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they basically put the mixing board on stage, so he was basically mixing during the show, pretty much in the center of the stage. And he had, at this point, the big kind of glam rock looks with the very long blonde hair, incredibly ostentatious outfits, and they added a keyboard in there. He started doing some stuff with synthesizers, but not an accomplished musician. He was more about the process of morphing music. And then egos and different things came into play with him and Brian Ferry from Roxy Music, and then he kind of set off on his own to do a couple albums. Where the first two albums, and Here Come the Warm Jets and The Taking of Tiger Mountain by Strategy, are still fairly traditional rock albums, and good ones. I mean, they're pretty fun, they're clever, and they're good music. So this is, we're getting into this now, the 6-year period. As he's left them, he does these two first solo albums, and then he comes out with Another Green World. And Another Green World is where you start to kind of see the more environmental music take over. And Another Green World is just a fantastic album. And as they kind of went through the documentary, you just had person after person kind of going, yeah, it's kind of like maybe the greatest album ever. It's really, really good. So he kind of cranks that out, and then he starts into another album called Discrete Music, which is really when you start to see the ambient stuff start to take hold. So he's doing that stuff. While he's doing that, he does the 3 albums with David Bowie during this time frame, and so including Heroes, and a couple of those, that was Low, Heroes, and I always get the name wrong. I think it's Lodger, those 3 albums, and most of those have kind of a rock-ish side, and then the second side, particularly like Low, sounds like a Brian Eno album. So he does a lot with David Bowie in there, and they kind of get a little bit deeper into things like Robert Fripp, who's another person that he partnered with, and kind of how that all came about, and kind of the balance. So you really kind of start to see the progression of what he's doing. While all this is going on, he says, you know what I need to do, because I'm not busy enough? I need to start my own record label. So he starts a record label called Obscure Records, and then Obscure Records releases around 9 or 10 albums of artists who would typically never be heard of any other way, to fairly great success. And so he fires up a successful record label. He collaborates with Bowie on 3 albums. He does no pussyfooting with Robert Fripp. He releases 4 albums of his own, and he's starting to kind of work his way through getting ready to kind of hit the ambient piece. But you just really kind of in the process start to get a sense of how he operated and what he did. And the really kind of interesting thing was when he went from Roxy Music off, everybody's like, well, he didn't exactly have a lot of money. And so there's going to be a lot of questions on what he's going to do. And he basically self-made himself from that point forward to doing all kind of the amazing stuff he does. So it is long. It is 2 hours and 42 minutes. You might want to watch it in a serial fashion. That's what I ended up having to do, is kind of take different chunks. But they bring, there's not like a ton of big names, where they're interviewing. It's not like there's a ton of stuff with Bowie talking or anything like that. But you're talking to people who are highly kind of knowledgeable about the music industry, about composition, and so there's lots of, they kind of do their take. They talk about discrete music and how it was that start to ambient. And so it's just kind of fascinating, and you get to kind of understand the guy a little bit better and where he came from. So you get also some good tastes of the music. I mean, throughout it, you'll get little samplings of the different pieces that have gone in, so you get to actually hear some of the stuff start to evolve. But I've always loved his music. I knew the general storyline. I didn't know if 2.5 hours plus worth of documentary on 6 years of his career was going to be riveting viewing. But I found it really enjoyable, and it was interesting, and he's a fascinating character.
Yeah.
So you can watch it on Amazon Prime. You can also go to YouTube and search on Brian Eno, Man Who Fell to Earth, and someone has taken the time to put it out in 16 different segments, so you can kind of So if you want to do the serial thing, I guess you could do it that way and kind of work your way through. I recommend maybe, taking a break or two because it is fairly long to get through, but I'm not sure I do the 16 on YouTube. But it's available for you if you don't happen to be an Amazon Prime user.
Yeah. That's cool. He really is a fascinating person. And me being the not incredibly musically knowledgeable person like Kelly obviously is, I just listen to this stuff. I don't delve into the background of it. I've always liked his music. It's just, I don't know. It just says something. I don't know. It's very interesting.
And then, each seems like every few years, all of a sudden he goes, yeah, okay, now I'm going to kind of turn it a little bit. So now he's got that kind of the interactive side where you can kind of self-generated music and the installations where he's doing video and audio together. And it's just, the guy just keeps kind of cranking along, doing pretty interesting things. And as he became more and more into this mode, the hair got shorter. He started to look a little more professorial and kind of going in there. But I also didn't, he was known just as Eno in Roxy Music, and somewhere towards the end of this cycle is when he stopped being called Eno, and they actually started using his full name. But just another little fun thing. Yeah. So it's worth a listen. But yeah, enjoy them.
Cool, and I happen to be an Amazon Prime member.
Yes, so you could enjoy it as well. But yeah, I would add that to your watch list because it's definitely good, and particularly because Amazon Prime is chock full of all sorts of documentaries on musicians and all that, and there are a few other ones that I watched as well, and this was a lot more rewarding for me on all kinds of levels. A more likable guy, a more interesting story, and just a pretty well done, actually a very well done documentary. So
cool.
So I would recommend that.
Absolutely. So, no surprise to anyone. I don't really have any social media. Do you have one today?
I do. As I mentioned before, the gang that watches Gotham is a fun gang. If you're live tweeting and you're looking for cool live tweeting people to do, people on Gotham are pretty awesome. And who I'm recommending today is Ashley Elizabeth, ASHLEYELIZABETH, Ashley Elizabeth, kind of like it sounds. She live tweets Gotham, and also she's active during Walking Dead as well. And so she's pretty funny. She's actually very funny. And so if you're looking for a good person, if you're watching either of those shows, someone who's going to throw out some pretty good stuff, that would be her. Her Twitter bio is Ashley, paralegal, blogger, horror enthusiast, smartass, master of 140 characters of TMI and WTF, Hail Hydra. So anyone who's got Hail Hydra in their Twitter bio, how can you not follow them?
No, that means she's good folk.
Yep, she's good folk, good people.
All right, so I think that concludes episode 101 after the recommendation madness.
Yeah, and since we don't need Matt for a while, I'm going to give him a pass this week because we do really appreciate all that Matt has done in terms of what you hear at the end of these shows, and then he added some nice little candy for us during the recommendation madness stuff, which was really, really cool.
He did, because despite what Kelly tells all of you, Matt is a really good guy. And we like him.
Yes, we do. Pains me to say. So we will turn it over to our good buddy Matt, who will tell you all the many different ways. He won't tell you about Stitcher, and that's a failing of his, and we're going to need to correct that. But we are on Stitcher, possibly because we didn't ask him to mention Stitcher. I don't know. But we are on Stitcher, YouTube, iTunes, obviously. Hit us on the blog. He'll give you the email and the Twitter account, and look forward to talking to everybody next week.
We'll be back.
You can contact us on our website, nurtureandsupport.net, or email us at nurtandsupp@gmail.com. That's NURTANDSUPP@gmail.com. Or tweet us at nurtandsupp on Twitter. You can also catch Nurture and Support on YouTube. Just search Nurture and Support or Kelly Toole.
Nurturing and supporting. Darn it.